Welcome back to my Mental Health and Crime channel. My name is Huda London. This is the case of the Idaho quadruple murders that took place on the 13th of November 2022. The victims are Kaylee Congalves, Madison Morgan, Ethan Chapin, and Xana Conodle. May they rest in peace. Condolence to their families, and may the correct justice be served. I have gone back to the beginning of this case for the last 2 months, and I personally find it interesting about how much we have found out since we started going to the beginning of this case. What I mean by that is that timelines have been changed. I do understand at the start of every case, it takes time for the FBI, the police, to gather the information. Idaho Moscow was in a state of shock, so was the world. 4 young lives, precious lives, were just taken too soon at a very young age. It's important to find out what exactly happened to them. Justice needs to be served. So I'll play this clip. It's about the timeline.
The first step in the Latah County legal process to try to convict the killer of 4 University of Idaho students now nearly 2 months ago. 28-year-old Brian Koberger was in court this morning for his arraignment after landing in Idaho from Pennsylvania yesterday evening. Morgan Romero is live in Moscow right now, where the proceedings lasted long enough for Koberger to hear the charges against him. Morgan?
Yeah, initial appearances, Brian, are typically very short, but we did learn a lot of new information from a probable cause affidavit that was unsealed just about an hour before that appearance this morning. It was 18 pages long. It was super detailed. It gave the most information that we've ever seen in this court case, and what it showed is that investigators have been watching Brian Koberger since very early on in the investigation. About 2 weeks after the murders on November 13th, Brian Koberger had his first court appearance in this building behind me today, the Latah County Courthouse, which also serves as the jail. We had to get here really early in the morning because his court hearing wasn't set yesterday when he arrived from Pennsylvania. It was set this morning, and we didn't know, so a long line of media was in the lobby this morning. His hearing at 9:30 Pacific time. He faces 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 burglary charge. He's accused of unlawfully entering the King Road home where the crimes happened with the intent to commit murder. If he's found guilty, he could face the death penalty or life in prison. He was also issued a no-contact order with the victims' families. He was also appointed a public defender, and the judge set no bail.
At this point in time, pursuant to Idaho Criminal 46B and Idaho Code 19-816 and 2903, I am going to leave the bail set in this case as no bail at this point in time until I have additional and further information at a later date and time. Latah County, this is the magistrate.
His next hearing is January 12th at 10 a.m. Pacific. It's going to be a status hearing, and at that time, they'll set the next hearing, the preliminary hearing. As you can see in the video, he was wearing an orange jumpsuit in court. Our Alexandra Duggan was in the courtroom when he was there. I was in the overflow room since there were so many people. She says he showed little emotion as the charges were read against him from the judge. He looked tense, though. His public defender also said that he has a strong family, and his family stands behind him. Along with the defendant and the prosecutors and the defendant's public defender, Kaylee Gonsalves, one of the victims, her family was in the courtroom, and their attorney gave a short statement after the hearing saying that the family is in it for the long haul. I want to go through that probable cause affidavit I mentioned earlier. We're going to lay out some of the details that we learned from that today, but I do want to note that investigators were able to connect Brian Koberger with the scene of the crime through DNA, video surveillance showing his car, and cell phone records. So here's what we know. Xana and Ethan were found on the 2nd floor, and Maddie and Kaylee were found in bed together on the 3rd floor. That's what the PCA shows. Officers noticed a tan leather knife sheath on the bed next to Maddie. A sheath is a cover for the blade of a knife. They figured out it was a K-bar knife with a Marine Corps insignia. The Idaho State Lab found a single source of male DNA on the button of that sheath, which they call the suspect profile. They then compared that DNA to trash that they took from the Koberger family home in Pennsylvania on December 27th. As you heard Brian mention, he came from Pennsylvania. That's where he was arrested, at his family home. So investigators matched the DNA of the suspect's father from that trash, almost 100% to the DNA on that knife sheath. The affidavit also shows 2 surviving roommates said everyone was home by 2 a.m. and in their rooms by 4 a.m. on the morning of the murders, November 13th, except for Xana Kernodle, one of the victims, who got a DoorDash order delivered at 4 a.m. Officers say Kaylee Gonsalves' dog was there at the time of the crime. She's heard barking several times on security footage from a neighboring home. One roommate who survived says she was woken up around 4 a.m. by noise on the 3rd floor above her. She said it sounded like Kaylee playing with her dog. She heard one of her roommates say, "There's someone here." Investigators say this could have been Xana because she was likely awake and on TikTok at the time. The surviving roommate says she opened her door when she heard crying coming from Xana's room, and then she heard a man say, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." The roommate says she opened her door again. She saw a person in black wearing a mask covering their mouth and nose. She described him as tall, not muscular, but with an athletic build and had bushy eyebrows. So this is the first we are hearing that the surviving roommate, one of the 2 surviving roommates, also saw the suspect in this case. The roommate says he walked past her and she stood in a frozen shock phase. He then left. Investigators believe the homicides happened between 4 and 4:25 a.m. 911 was called around noon, so several hours after the murders allegedly happened, from one of the roommates' phones inside the home. Investigators have reviewed several surveillance videos throughout this, and they say surveillance video from the area showed a white Hyundai Elantra seen near the crime scene multiple times around the time of the murders. Then on November 29th, Washington State University Police learned Brian Koberger owned a white Hyundai Elantra. The physical description from his driver's license matched the one that the roommate gave. Koberger, as we've been reporting, is a PhD student in criminology at Wazoo. Investigators got search warrants for his cell phone records. His phone did not ping towers near the King Road house because investigators believe he turned it off, but it did ping on its way to Moscow and back to Pullman after the murders. His phone records also match the movements of the Hyundai Elantra as seen on surveillance video. Officers also later learned through cell phone records that Koberger had been by the King Road home at least 12 times leading up to the murders, in the months before the murders, in the late evening hours, or in the early morning hours. So Brian, again, just learning so many new details today as he made his first appearance in court.
Now, I have a problem with the timeline. This is from Creme TV. It's a big channel in Idaho. They were the first ones to cover this case. The affidavit shows that the 2 surviving roommates say everyone was home by 2 a.m. Xana had a DoorDash delivery at 4 a.m. Wasn't we told that Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk were home by 1 a.m. and that Xana and Ethan were home by 1:45? And they said that Kaylee and Maddie were at home by 1:45 too, but Kaylee's sister proved that they were wrong. She said they were home by 1:56 because she saw that through the app they used together as a family. So how are things changing so quickly? And this was when Brian Christopher Koberger was arrested in Pennsylvania and brought back to Idaho, Moscow. 2 surviving roommates say everyone was home by 2 a.m. And wasn't it said by Xana's father that Xana decided not to go home, not to go out that night? She's getting pizza. She's going to order pizza and stay at home. So basically, what we are actually listening to is what the 2 roommates said. Pay attention to this. Everything is said by the two roommates. So everything is information given by the two surviving roommates. DM is one of the surviving roommates, and she was the one who saw the alleged killer. I wanted to know how dark it was in the house. How far could Dylan see? Because apparently Dylan opened her door thrice, I believe. And let's not forget the previous neighbor said that the house, sorry, not the previous neighbor, the previous tenant who lived in the house told ABC News that the house is very creaky. If anyone walks up the steps on the floors, you could hear everything. Wouldn't have Brian Koberger heard Dylan opening the door? Not once, not twice, thrice. I've heard many professionals and law enforcement professionals saying that maybe Koberger didn't see Dylan. I can understand that. It was dark. What about hearing? I don't think Brian Koberger has hearing issues. He has the snow vision, the eye issue, but he doesn't have hearing issues. So he would have heard somebody opening the door, closing the door, reopening it, closing it, doing it thrice. Why was the front door left open? Did the suspect come in from the back door, the windows, or the front door? Was that to distract people? Was there two sets of people? Because I personally don't believe that Brian Koberger could have managed to unlive 4 people in such a short time. Pay attention to the knife that was used. They say that it's a K-bar knife, and it's always said a military knife. I don't understand people can buy knives easily, but I've heard many professionals saying they should check who has the background for military, or I would assume who has parents who have the background of military, or who has friends who would have the background of military to have a K-bar knife. I'm going to be honest here, and this is my speculation. It's not the facts, this is speculation. The 2 people I can think of carrying K-bar knives or playing with K-bar knives would have to be John Jack Showalter. The second person I can think of having a K-bar knife and having a military profession would have to be Brent Kopacka. May he rest in peace. I don't understand. He's a Purple Heart soldier. I'm just asking questions, and it's important to ask questions. Let's be honest. 1122 King Road was a road or house that many parties used to go on. That means many people had the code of the house. We've heard that from Aliviero That is Kaylee Congav's older sister. May she rest in peace. And she said that many people had the code. And that is facts. Could it be possible that somebody who knows these victims used the code to come in, did what they have to do, and ran out of the front door, and in their haste and in their anxiety, they forgot to close the front door? Could it be allegedly the 4 figures we saw running? Just a question. I know many people don't like questions, but questions leads you to an answer. If you don't ask, you don't get the answers. You may not even get the answers, but it's worth a shot, because 4 people are slain to death. They're entitled to their justice. Why was the front door left open? Wasn't it cold that night? Yes, it was cold, because we saw many people at the grub truck, how they were dressed. Some of them had on gloves. What is going on in the house? We know that Eaton and Xana, may they rest in peace, were involved in a fight. Let's not forget law enforcement were interested in the the timelines of Xana and Eaton, not Kaylee and Maddie. Where was Xana and Eaton? A call was made by Sigma Chi because there was a fight there. What was that about? Then you had the minor alcohol body cam stop in Banfield. We had the 4 figures running. Look at all the traffic that was happening. And they said it was an awfully quiet night. Nothing awfully quiet by this. I personally believe that this timeline is wrong. The reason I believe it is I will stick to the timeline that we were given 6-8 months ago. This timeline changed when they were searching for the Hyundai, for the Elantra Hyundai. And the Elantra they were searching for was 2011 to 2013. The woman that owns Linda Lane Flats apartments said, she's written in one article, and I'll find that soon, she said that she gave the dash cam to the police, but she said the dash cams showed a light color car, off-white. She said a light color car, but it wasn't white. So was it silver? Was it beige? Was it cream? What color was it? Why haven't we got to see that? Seeing is believing. Why would it take 7 weeks to arrest Brian Koberger? Why would Brian Koberger be hanging around for 7 weeks after he's done a quadruple murder? Wouldn't he be scared? He knows, example, if he's done that, he knows what's going to happen to him. So why would he be just hanging around for 7 weeks and then decide, oh, now I'll go to Pennsylvania? Did you all know that the trip between Brian Koberger and his father was pre-planned way before these murders? His father was supposed to fly in and drive home back with him. This wasn't something that Brian allegedly decided to do right after the murder, like, Dad, come pick me up. Something is not right in this case. And I'm being honest, something is not right. Just that we saw 4 figures running should say a lot. Why haven't they investigated the 4 figures? The 4 figures was clearly running from the direction of King Road. They were running down the steps. They passed those flats with the lights on, and they were running towards Sigma Chi. We can't guarantee they were running there, but obviously the direction looked like they came from the victim's house. So were they victims? Were they witnesses who saw something and ran off? Or were they involved in the quadruple murders? Why was the door open?
It gave us a whole lot of detail as to what happened in those early morning hours of November 13th, both in and around the King Road house and all the way to Pullman, Washington, 10 miles away. The affidavit is the statement of Corporal Brent Payne, a 4-year veteran at the Moscow Police Department. Corporal Payne arrived at the King Road house that Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon, on November 13th, around 4 in the afternoon. For the next 4 pages of that affidavit or so, he described what he saw at the scene and what he was told by the surviving roommates. The DNA that you heard Morgan talk about that was found on the sheath the snap of the sheath that was found in the bed next to Maddie, obviously one of the biggest breaks in the case. The others, as you also heard Morgan mention, the white Hyundai Elantra owned and driven by Koberger, and his cell phone, both with links to his parents in Pennsylvania. The car had Pennsylvania plates until 5 days after the murder. That was when Koberger allegedly did change his tags, registering his Elantra in Whitman County, Washington, where he was going to school at Washington State. However, within the school, it was still registered as being from Pennsylvania. His phone, Corporal Payne later learned, was also under his parents' AT&T account in Pennsylvania. And it was these 2 pieces of information, along with those security and traffic cameras in the area, a police officer's instinct about unusual neighborhood traffic, and that cell phone showing up on area towers that helped Moscow police by December 23rd know they had their man and his whereabouts that morning.
Brian Koberger was stopped by the police on the August body cam video, if you have seen that, in front of Washington Pullman College. You'll need to go back and listen to him talking to the police officer, the female officer. He was supposed to register his car, and he booked to register his car in November. So there was nothing new. Just because he changed his, the license plate, or because Washington Pullman has it in the front and back, I guess. Pennsylvania has it only in the back. He was going to do it in November. I remember him telling the officer. So it's not like he just decided, now I've done the quadruple murders, now let me go and change my license plate. It doesn't make sense for me, because if he did the quadruple murders, unless he's a narcissistic, antisocial personality disorder person that thinks that he is going to get away with a quadruple murder, this is a man who's taken psychology as his bachelor's. This man took crime and justice in his master's. Oh no, he took criminology in his master's, and he took crime and justice in his PhD. Professor Ramsell said that he was her favorite student, that he was very intelligent. DeSales High School refused to give a comment, but they said he was an intelligent student. They all were put on gag orders, so they couldn't speak much. For somebody who's learnt about crime so much, I hardly can believe that he would hang around for 7 weeks more. I do believe Bryan Kohberger is phone pinged in the area, definitely. I believe he could have been peeping. He was a peeper, maybe. Maybe that's what he did the 12 times before. We don't know if he was friends with any of the roommates. May they rest in peace. We don't know if he was friends with BF. Why does Bryan Kohberger want to talk to Bethany Funk? He clearly said that whatever Bethany Funk knows is going to exonerate me. Pay attention to that. But yet, the prosecution has sealed her evidence and her statements in court. So Bethany is not allowed to talk. I know some people would say, oh yeah, but she's a surviving roommate and she's going through a lot and all. I do understand, and I do respect that. I've thought about that, and I've thought about DM too. I feel sorry. My heart breaks out for everything they witness. But wouldn't they want to get justice for their 3 roommates and Ethan that they knew so well? Isn't that the right thing to do? It's almost a year. It's not like you're shook and you're traumatized still. If I was Bethany Funk, I would have said, no, you know what? I'm going to tell the truth, whatever happened. Because my friends did not die in vain. They need justice. So what does BF know? Why is everything on gag orders? Why isn't Ann Taylor getting what she's entitled to? Where are the 3 male unidentified DNAs? One was clearly on the Good Vibes picture, one was the glove outside, and one was the latent footprint, the diamond footprint, in front of Dylan's room. Wonder if the person was going towards Dylan's room. Strange. There's too many things here that doesn't add up. Everyone's entitled to a correct justice. Bryan Kohberger could be guilty or Bryan Kohberger could be innocent. I'm being honest today. This isn't fair. They need to let him and his lawyer have what they need so that this case can proceed on. I don't personally believe it's Ann Taylor that's wasting time. I'm entitled to my opinion. It's the prosecution that's wasting the time. They went and got DNA from genealogical family trees and such things. They built a family tree, tried to make a way to find out a roadmap if it was Brian who did it. So if you have done your road maps and your work, aren't you entitled to show it to the court? If they don't show the evidence, this case isn't going to go far. It's going to drag on, honestly. And this is not fair for the families. This is not fair for Brian Koberger and his family too. Because if he did it, then show him the evidence how he did it, where he was. How he did it, I mean by his timeline. His alibi doesn't sound very solid, but it doesn't sound like something that is impossible. Some people love to drive at night. He was teaching, he's a teacher, and he was doing his PhD. His neighbors said that he doesn't sleep much at night. He loves cleaning. He has OCD. Maybe he likes to take a ride outside. And yes, maybe he passes by and peeps at the girl's house because maybe he knows one of the girls, like BF or DM. Or maybe he's just a peeper, which is wrong, but that doesn't mean he's a murderer for that. He doesn't drive a 2011 to 2013 Hyundai Elantra. So what's up? The Hyundai Elantra that was seen near the gas station speeding away. There is actually one Hyundai Elantra that is parked just 2-3 minutes from the gas station in the houses. So there's somebody who owns a car like that. I've seen it on one YouTube channel. I believe it was Bubbly Waters. Shout out to him if it was him or whoever put that on. So what if it was that car that they saw driving away? Why is Brian Christopher Koberger saying he's eager to be exonerated? I still can't believe that the roadmap to the genealogical DNA evidence, the 3 unidentified evidence, have not been shown to Ann Taylor. How is she supposed to defend her client? This is just putting all the people, all the families involved into more emotional stress, into trauma. Justice needs to be served, but that means both the parties should hand over everything so that the trial can start as soon as possible. These 4 victims deserve their justice.
Security cameras was this car pull up here onto King Road, then pull onto Queen Road here, and then eventually make it to this apartment complex, turn around, come back to the intersection at Queen and King, make a 3-point turn, turn back around, and find some parking somewhere in this area. Because then what happened was, at 4:20, later that morning, just about 15 minutes later, a white Hyundai Elantra was seen speeding out of the area of the King Road apartment complex. Then, beginning at about 5:25, a white Hyundai Elantra, or a sedan that looks just like that, was seen on 5 different security cameras coming through Pullman and also into the Washington State campus. First seen coming up Johnson Road here, then where it hits Bishop, and then onto Stadium Way and made its way into the Washington State campus. It passed Grimes. As we zoom in here and show you there, there's Nevada Street. It went past Grimes. It was picked up there. It was picked up at Wilson, which is right there. And then it continued all the way around. If you follow this away, it picked up on Cougar just a few minutes later. That road continues all the way around Stadium Way, up to the right, up Valley Road, and then you turn up this place here, right here. This would be the Steptoe Apartments. the home of 28-year-old Brian Koberger, in this apartment complex right there. 12 days later, on November 25th, the Moscow Police Department asked area law enforcement to be on the lookout for a white Hyundai Elantra. On November 29th, Washington State University police found a 2015 Hyundai Elantra registered to a student, a 28-year-old Brian Koberger, who's a criminology student, a graduate criminology student studying at Washington State. His car was found about a half hour later, on that November 29th, right here in this parking lot. His driver's license picture and the information also matched the roommate's description of the man she saw in the house the morning of the murders. That pushed Moscow police to look into Koberger's cell phone data, a number they got after pulling him over for a traffic violation in August. So that brings us to the cell phone data to kind of corroborate what they saw on traffic cameras. So that starts here at 2:42 a.m. on November 13th, the morning of the murders. That cell phone pinged in the area of the Steptoe Village apartments where Koberger lives. At 2:47, it picks him up leaving his apartment complex and driving south through Pullman on its way, we assume, to Highway 270, which takes you to Moscow. That's this map here. It turns off at 2:47. It doesn't ping on any more cell phone towers. Then 2 hours later, at 4:48, that cell phone pops up again on a cell phone tower just north of Genesee near Blaine in this area. And for the next few minutes or so, from 4:50 to 5:26, they tracked it, moving west toward Uniontown, then back north as it made its way back to Pullman. And then at about 5:30, that cell phone once again pings in Pullman, right here on Johnson and Bishop, as it made its way back into Pullman and onto the Washington State campus.
I hope you were paying attention. Did you all notice that he did not mention 3:45 at night that allegedly the Hyundai Elantra was spotted at Troy Road near the gas station? Pay attention to that. So who was the person driving a white Elantra with dark tinted windows at 3:45? Because that was the gas station picture that was sent out on the 7th of December 2022. And that's how they said they found out it was Brian Koberger. But now we're hearing about they were pinging his phone. So whether they pinged his phone or not, yes, the man said he drives at night. That doesn't prove that he came to the house, got off the car, went inside, used 15 minutes or used 12 minutes, or was it 9 minutes, 8 minutes to do a quadruple murder with 2 surviving roommates, and one allegedly saw him. Even if he didn't see her, wouldn't the footsteps and the creaky sound of the doors that Dylan opened twice or thrice, wouldn't he have noticed that? So are we going according to Dylan DM, his version of bushy eyebrows? Because that can be a debate. Many people have bushy eyebrows. And I'm not trying to be rude or trying to be funny. It's the truth. How could she see bushy eyebrows when it was supposed to be 5:04 a.m. at night? It's dark. Only the good vibes light was on. And they said a footstep was found in front of Dylan's room. So are they trying to tell us that Dylan shut her room, that she kept on opening thrice, and then Koberger came and he stood in front of her door to have made that footprint? And then he decided, you know what? I'll just continue. I've got 4 victims. It doesn't make sense. Make it make sense. The Hyundai Elantra was seen at 3:45. How come they don't mention it? Now they're giving us, actually, the Creme TV is giving us the best breakdown, and you don't hear about the gas station. So basically, all they have is his phone pinging, his phone being switched off and switched on. I'm being honest. That is enough to speculate. I'm not going to defend Brian Koberger, but I'm just trying to use my common sense, and it doesn't make sense. We saw 4 figures running, and they always said that the murders happen between 3 to 4. It could have actually happened after 2, if you ask me. That's possible too. When did Katie Congal's phone go off? Was it 2:50 or 2:56? When did they come home? 1:56. Was someone waiting in the house? Was someone waiting in the vacant room next to BF's room? Because I clearly saw the forensic team taking a lot of pictures from outside the house to that room. They even sealed that room with a tape. You can go check it. Why? What happened in that room? And the door was left wide open. So did somebody came, allegedly wait for the 4 victims in the house and attack them when they came in? It's possible. I'm just speculating. It's easier to believe that 3-4 people attacked these students than 1 person attacked the students within 7 or 8 minutes. Make that make sense.
Roadhouse. Later that day of the murders, November 13th at 9 a.m., it showed him leaving his apartment and arriving around King Road between 9:12 and 9:21. By 9:32, it showed him back at his apartment in Poland. So he apparently returned to the scene of the crime the very next morning.
I hate to be correcting news media channels, but that is wrong. He did not come back to the scene. His car pinged on the hill behind the Kings Road house. I mean, like literally the road, not the road behind the girl's house, up on the hill. So it's important to give the accurate details. Yes, that is kind of suspicious. Why would he come back to around the scene? But that still doesn't make him a killer, does it? Trigger warning. I want to see the dash cam of the neighbors, and I want to see the dash cam of Linda Lane, because the owner of the apartment said no, the car wasn't white. She said the car was, let me remember the exact words. She said it wasn't off-white like the white Hyundai. She said it was a lightish color. That is what she said. It was a light color.
Minor historical record request of Koberger's phone showed he visited the area of King Road 12 times prior to the murders, all but 1 late in the evening or in the early morning hours.
Koberger visited the house or around those areas 12 different times. I heard that clearly. We heard that. Does that make him a killer? It's just a bit strange and awkward that he's there, but have they ever thought about why does Koberger want to speak to BF? Was he dating BF? Were they friends? Allegedly? Did she see the crimes? Because allegedly, Brian Kohlberger said, Bethany Funk can exonerate me. That means she knows that maybe he came there to give us something. We never know. Because if that was Kohlberger who went out of his car, he was just out for a couple of minutes and he ran back inside his car. This doesn't make sense. Now here is the picture I wanted to show you. Look at where the crime scene tape is. It's directly on the room that is empty. That is the room of the 6th roommate, who I believe checked out or didn't live there anymore. The crime scene, the forensics was taking pictures, dusting fingerprints or whatever from the window, from the windows. Please explain that. And there were footsteps in front of the house. In front of the house. They were taking pictures of it. So what exactly happened here? Do not forget, this is the opposite room of Bethany Funk. Is that why Kohlberger wants Bethany Funk to talk? A man's life is on the line, and he could be guilty or he could be innocent. Doesn't he deserve a fair trial? Doesn't the victims, don't they deserve the right justice? I would believe if somebody tells me that it's Brian Kohlberger who did it with the help of so and so and so and so and so and so. It's impossible that he did it by himself. He ain't a military man. He ain't no sniper. He ain't the SWAT team. He ain't the FBI. He's into a trained killer. Trigger warning. Those are my thoughts on this case. Because the right questions needs to be asked. I've always waited for the affidavit and for everything else to make it make sense. But the more I go to the beginning, it doesn't make sense. There are recordings on YouTube going on with that the crime actually happened at 2 a.m. You can hear the recordings from Linda Lane. I hope Ann Taylor has prepared a case to trial, and I hope she searches for the truth. That is what we all want. If Kohlberger has done this crime, he deserves whatever's coming his way. But if he hasn't done it, he deserves a fair trial no matter what. So does the parents of Kaylee Congarves. May she rest in peace. Zana Conodil, may she rest in peace. Madison Morgan, may she rest in peace. And Eaton Chapin, may he rest in peace. The families deserve the truth. If people just want to read the affidavit and believe everything that's said, that's all right. But people are different. I love to ask questions. Because we know 2 + 2 makes 4. But if you give me 2 + 3 and you say that's 4, I'll keep on saying it's 5. I would want to know your roadmap, how you came to that calculation. So show it to Ann Taylor. Show it to the public. Have a lovely night, guys. Please like, share, and subscribe.